Okay, before I go do the thing, I've got to do this now, because I believe this is the last chance. So, lore episode final. I'm going to run through all the rest of the lore, because I want to see everything. I need to know everything before I finish this one, and to prepare for Mass Effect 2 when I get to it. So, Codex time. How many more do I have that are red? Just this one.
Pharos is a habitable
Ilos.
world like the ancient human city of Troy. Ilos is a world known only through second-hand sources. References to Ilos have been found at several other Prothean ruins, though direct study of the world is unlikely to occur. Ilos lies in a remote area of the Terminus systems, only accessible by the legendary Mu Relay. 4,000 years ago, the Mu Relay was knocked out of position by a supernova and lost. Since then, Ilos and its cluster have been inaccessible.
So do we know where it is?
Occasionally, a university will organize an expedition to chart a route to Ilos using conventional FTL drive. These never get beyond the planning stages due to the distance and danger. The journey could take years or decades, passing through the hostile Terminus systems and dozens of unexplored systems.
Alright, I mean, Saren was looking for the Mu Relay because it's the only way to get over there, right? So, did we find it? Like, it got knocked out of position. I guess we'll figure that out when we get to it. Alright, update, bring down the sky. Technology translation. I've been wondering about that. Like, does everyone just speak, like, English or, like, basic or whatever? Let's see. Human cultures remain linguistically divided. Some converse in Spanish, others in Mandarin, Arabic, Swahili, etc. Every alien race has their own equally broad panoply of languages and dialects. Most individuals know only their mother tongue, and rely on machine translation. Modern portable computers allow anyone with a few hundred credits of equipment to enjoy seamless real-time translation of alien languages, courtesy of handheld PDAs, computers in clothing or jewelry, or subdermal implants. Without fast and accurate translation, galactic trade and culture could not exist. Oh, so we all have translation computers that just do live, real-time translation. That's fancy. When do we get that technology in real life? Because, man, that's gotta be complex. How do you get all the nuance? There's so much to consider. How do you manage? I guess Prothean technology helps with that. Still, that's crazy. Governments provide subsidized software, updated through the public extranet on the fly, often as users approach spaceport customs facilities. Even the Batarians, who isolated themselves from galactic society nearly 2 decades ago, take pains to provide up-to-date glossaries and linguistic rules, though most suspect this is only so they can continue exporting propaganda. Of course, you gotta speak the language if you want people to know of your rebellion. It is still considered broad-minded and practical to be able to speak without machine aid. Children often take courses in alien language, and most races can speak the simplified artificial trade tongue with little difficulty. Some species must rely on machine translation to interact with the rest of the galaxy. Hanar, for example, cannot reproduce the spoken language of any humanoid species, and other races cannot reproduce bioluminescence without mechanical aid. Oh, they're not speaking to your mind. They just glow funny colors, and the translator's like, this is what they sound like, with like the reverse reverb. Translation software, why would you do that? We'll just make it normal. Okay. Newly discovered or obscure races don't have machine translation available until linguists have time to study them. But like, how do you program that into language? Again, there's so much nuance, there's so much like subtlety, and then how's the stuff that you can't translate? Like, as someone who studied Japanese and thoroughly enjoys the language, although I haven't become perfectly fluent in it because it's difficult, yo. There's a lot where I'm sitting there going, how would you say this in English? Not to mention puns and jokes, like those cannot come across, especially if they're based in like culture instead of just like linguistics. So, I mean, I guess this is just hand-waving, listen, this is how everyone speaks, don't think too hard about it. Machine translation, you know, Google Translate is super advanced. But, sure, I guess. Alright, alien council races. Solarians, not Sarians. Sarian is not a thing. Solarians' culture. The rare Solarian females are cloistered on their worlds out of tradition and respect. Powerful female Delatresses are dynasts and political kingpins. They determine the political course of their respective regions through shrewd negotiation. Though male Solarians rise to the positions of great authority in business, academia, or the military, they rarely have any input on politics. Due to their method of reproduction, Solarians have no concept of romantic love, sexual attraction, or the biological impulses and social rituals that complicate human lives. Male-female relationships are rare, due to the scarcity of females, and more akin to human friendship. Sexuality is strictly for the purpose of reproduction. Ancient social codes determine who gets to fertilize eggs, which produces more daughters to continue a bloodline. Fertilization generally only occurs after months of negotiation between the parents' clans and is done for the purposes of political and dynastic alliance. No Solarian would imagine defying this code. Solarian names are quite complex. A full name includes, in order, the name of the Solarian's planet, duchy, barony, fiefdom, family, and finally, the given name. Okay, but does that mean they never move? Do they consider, does that all stay static? Can you never leave your duchy, your barony, your fiefdom? Are you just stuck there? Is your family just stuck there? It feels like a really constrictive way. Granted, considering how they just explain the rest of Solarian culture, they probably don't care. It's sort of just how it is, and they exist that way. Alright, the government. Solarian government is called the Solarian Union. It is a labyrinthine web of matrilineal bloodlines with political alliances formed through interbreeding. In many ways, the Solarian political network functions like the noble families of Earth's medieval Europe. Oh, that's who they're supposed to be. Structurally, the government consists of fiefdoms, baronies, duchies, planets, and marches, colonization clusters. These are human nicknames. The original Solarian is unpronounceable. Each area is ruled by a single Delatress, matriarchal head of household, and represents an increasing amount of territory and prestige within the Solarian political web. Approaching 100 members, the first circle of a Solarian's clan comprises parents, siblings, uncles, aunts, and cousins. The next circle includes second cousins, etc., and escalates to well over 1,000 members. The fourth or fifth circle of a clan numbers into the millions. Solarian loyalty is greatest to their first circle and diminishes from there. Their photographic memories allow Solarians to recognize all their myriad relatives. I don't know. I feel like I wouldn't enjoy being a Solarian, but that's from a human perspective. Alright, military doctrine. Yes, because we just had the whole thing with the Solarian military on Vermeer. In principle, the Solarian military is similar to the Alliance, a small volunteer army that focuses on maneuver warfare. What differentiates the Solarians is not their equipment or doctrine, but their intelligence services and rules of engagement. The Solarians believe that a war should be won before it begins. Conventional wisdom holds that the Solarians know everything about everyone, and this is not far from the truth. In war, the unquestioned superiority of their intelligence services allows them to use their small military to maximum effectiveness. Well before fighting breaks out, they possess complete knowledge of the enemy's positions, intentions, and timetable. In every war the Solarians have fought, they struck first and without warning. For the Solarians, to know an enemy plans to attack and to let it happen is folly. To announce their own plans to attack is insanity. They find the human moral concepts of do not fire until fired upon and declare a war before prosecuting it incredibly naive. In defensive wars, they execute devastating preemptive strikes hours before the enemy's own attacks. On the offense, they have never telegraphed their intentions with a declaration of war before attacking. Biotics are virtually unknown in the Solarian military. Those with such abilities are considered too valuable to use as cannon fodder and are assigned to the intelligence services. While capable of defending themselves against most threats, the Solarians know that they are a small fish in a universe filled with sharks. As a point of survival, they've cultivated strong alliances with larger powers, particularly with the Turians. Though the relationship between the two species was rocky at first due to the Krogan uplift fiasco, the Solarian take pains to keep this relationship strong enough that anyone who might threaten them risks Turian intervention. So they are super tactician spies. And their concept of legal combat doesn't exist, because if you're going to have combat, it's going to be as unfair as possible. Just be smarter. That's basically it. If you're not smart enough to win, then you don't deserve to win. Which I can get behind, but, you know, it's only polite to declare war, to say, I'm going to nuke you. You know, evacuate the civilians because it's coming. Alright, non-council races. I had a lot of Quarian stuff to look at. I had all the Quarian stuff to look at. The migrant fleet has little economic base, operating in a state of perpetual hand-to-mouth. While Quarian ships include light manufacturing assembly plants, they lack heavy industries such as refining and shipbuilding. The fleet has tankers for water purification and oxygen cracking, but the space-intensive nature of agriculture limits food production. A single disaster could destroy the fragile balance. The Quarians earn income in creative ways. Because the government is obliged to provide food, water, air, and medical support for every individual, the Conclave strategically determines the course of the fleet to bring in resources and income. A species who suspects the migrant fleet is heading towards their space often offers a gift of surplus starships, fuel, and resources to convince the Conclave to alter course. The Quarians are coming. Please, send them away. Give them this gift. Make them leave. As the fleet passes through a system, swarms of mining vessels work over asteroids for metals, and siliceous materials and cometary bodies for water, ice, and organics. Quarian miners are adept at locating and strip mining spaceborne resources. This sparks conflict with corporations already working in the system. Large mining concerns spend millions on lobbyists and public relations portraying the Quarians as locusts, devouring the resources of the system before moving on. They literally don't have a home. The greatest asset of the Quarians is their rarefied skills. Most are experienced miners. Due to their life of perpetual salvage and repair, they are skilled engineers and technicians. More than once, the very corporations that lobby against the Quarians have made backroom deals with the fleet, arranging for skilled Quarians to fill space engineering jobs that other species would demand higher wages for. Quarians are widely hated among the working classes. The Quarians are coming to take our jobs is a common response to the fleet's approach. Oh my, that's... That has no real-world relevance at all, I'm sure. But listen, they literally don't have a home. They're on ships. They gotta find a way to make it work. And if they're willing to work for cheap, then supply and demand. They've got it working out as much as they can. Alright, the government. Due to the Quarians' precarious existence and the need to enforce strict rationing, government is somewhat autocratic. The migrant fleet's operations are directed by the Admiralty, a board of 5 military officers who are advised by a legislative body called the Conclave. Each vessel in the fleet has the right to send representative to the Conclave aboard the flagship. The number of representatives is based on crew size. Larger clans with bigger ships and more votes form the cores of political blocs. Opposition comes from the Outsiders Coalition, which delegates from thousands of smaller ships. The Admiralty defers to the Conclave's decisions in most circumstances. However, if all 5 members agree that a Conclave decision jeopardizes the survival of the fleet, they cannot get the Conclave to address their concerns, they have the right to summarily overturn legislative decision. After the Admiralty uses this extraordinary power, they must resign. If the Admiralty does not step down after using their veto, the rest of the military is obliged to arrest them. Each ship captain has authority over his vessel, but is advised by an elected civilian council, just as the Admiralty is advised by the Conclave. This relationship may range from cooperation to polite tolerance to outright hostility, but any captain who overrules his council without good reason is relieved of command by the Admiralty. Many Quarian ships are owned by clans who pool their resources to purchase used vessels from private sellers. Large ships are prestigious for big rich clans, but a small ship means status for a small clan with enough personal wealth to afford a private vessel. Clan vessel captains are not subject to dismissal by the Admiralty. Abusive captains are a family problem if they do not disrupt the operations of the fleet. That is intertwining and complex, but it has basis and sense. I don't know how well it works, but it seems to, at least. They seem to be very strict in, like, we have to run this ship as tight as possible, and you have one veto to be like, no, you're wrong, though, we're doing it this way. Then you must resign, because it's like, okay, you can no longer have this power because you've legally overextended your reach, so now it's time for someone else to deal with this. Alright, law and defense. Although the Conclave establishes civil law as much as any planet-based democracy, enforcement and trials are more unique. After the flight from the Geth, there were few constables to police the millions of civilians aboard the fleet, so the Navy parceled out Marine squads to maintain order and enforce the law. Today, Quarian Marines have evolved training and tactics akin to civilian police, but remain adept at combat in the confined spaces of Starship and fully under the command of the military. Once taken into custody, the accused is brought before the ship's captain for judgment. While the ship's council may make recommendations, tradition holds that the captain has absolute authority in the matters of discipline. Most are lenient, assigning additional or more odious maintenance tasks aboard the ship. Persistent, that's a word! Recidivists are accidentally left on the next habitable world. Oh, they just abandon them? It's like, you cannot stay here. They just exile them. This practice of abandoning criminals on other people's planets is a point of friction between the Quarians and the systems they pass through. Captains rarely have another choice. With space and resources at a premium, supporting a non-productive prison population is not an option. That's true. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to keep them aboard the ship as a prisoner and not have them work because they're too dangerous to work? No, just eject that body because, like, if they're not going to contribute, then they shouldn't get part of it. If they can't contribute, they can't get part of it. In the early years, many Quarian freighters were armed and used as irregular privateers. Civilian ships still show a strong preference for armament, making them unpopular targets for pirates. Though they have rebuilt their military, there are still mere hundreds of warships to protect tens of thousands of ships. The Quarian Navy follows strict routines of patrol and takes no chances. If the intent of an approaching ship can't be ascertained, they shoot to kill. Yeah, I mean, they literally have, like, less than an Earth continent's worth of people in a very explodable fleet. They cannot take any chances without losing a hefty chunk of people and resources. So they've got to be really strict with things. The Migrant Fleet itself. The Migrant Fleet is the largest concentration of starfaring vessels in the galaxy, sprawling across millions of kilometers. It can take days for the entire fleet to pass through a mass relay. When the Quarians fled their homeworld, the fleet was a motley aggregation of freighters, shuttles, industrial vessels, and the odd warship. After 3 centuries, all have been modified to support larger crews as comfortably as possible. As the Quarians achieved stability, they began weeding out the ships least suitable for long-term habitation, selling them and pooling the money to buy larger and more space-worthy hulls. The process is ongoing, as vessels wear out and break down. While some ships enjoy dedicated cabins with full privacy and sanitary facilities, many more are former freighters, whose cargo bays and containers are pressurized and divided into family spaces, using simple metal cubicle bulkheads. The Quarians enliven these austere spaces with colorful quilts and tapestries, which also help muffle sound. The day-to-day operations of the fleet, traffic control, station keeping, supply distribution, and so on, are under military jurisdiction. Though ship captains have the authority to deviate from their assigned positions and may leave the fleet at any time, they are assumed to do so at their own risk. As the Migrant Fleet moves around the galaxy, many ships split off to pursue individual goals, returning days or years later. Okay, so you're allowed to leave, but it's like, you're on your own. You're allowed to come back, but bring good stuff for everybody else. The Pilgrimage. When Quarians of the Migrant Fleet reach young adulthood, they must leave their birth ship and find a new crew to accept them as permanent residents. To prove themselves, they must recover something of value. This is offered to their prospective captain as proof that they will not be a mere burden on the shoestring resources of the ship. This process is called the Pilgrimage. Stripped of ritual, the Pilgrimage is merely an attempt to maintain genetic diversity within the small, relatively isolated population bases that make up the Migrant Fleet. If the young stayed and married within their birth vessel, the risk of inbreeding would increase sharply. Oh, that makes sense. Quarians are surgically fitted with various immunity-boosting implants in preparation for leaving on pilgrimage. Having grown up within the sterile, controlled environments of the Migrant Fleet ships, Quarians have virtually no natural immune system. That really explains the suit. That is super dangerous. Wow. Yeah, I'd say you need to get sick to build up the immune system, but not if it's going to outright kill you because you don't have an immune system. Alright, and Quarian religion. Ancient Quarians practiced ancestor worship. Even after abandoning faith for secularism, Quarians continued to revere the wisdom of the elders. As time passed and technology advanced, they inevitably turned their knowledge to preserving the personalities and memories of the elderly as computer virtual intelligences. These recordings became a repository of knowledge and wisdom, stored in a central databank and available through any extranet connection. They held no illusions that this was a form of immortality. Like all virtual intelligences, their electronically preserved ancestors were not truly sapient. This was considered a surmountable problem. Sapience could surely be reduced to simple mathematics. The Quarians began exhaustive research into creating artificial intelligence so that they could learn to escape the bounds of mortality and give their ancestral records true awareness. Unfortunately, the life that the Quarians created did not accept the same truths they did. The Geth destroyed the ancestor databanks when they took over. Oh, that sucks! In the centuries since they have evacuated their homeworld, most Quarians have returned to religion in various forms. Many believe that the rise of the Geth and the destruction of their ancestors were chastisement for arrogantly forsaking the old ways and venerating self-made idols. Others have a more philosophical outlook, believing that their race was indeed arrogant, but no supernatural agency lay behind the Geth revolt. Rather, the Quarians' actions wrought their own doom. Either way, every Quarian would agree that their own hubris cost them their homeworld. Yeah, that's definitely where you can see it, where it's like, oh, we made the Geth to be intelligent, and then it's like, well, they became alive and decided, no, we don't want to be your old ancestors, we want to be ourselves. But the fact that they destroyed the ancestor databanks, like, that feels like it's going too far. Wow. Alright, Citadel and Galactic Government. Oh my god, there's so much. Citadel Conventions. These diplomatic talks occurred in the wake of Krogan rebellions as a response to the destruction of the conflict and attempt to distance the Council from the brutal Krogan warfare. The conventions regulate the use of weapons of mass destruction. A WMD causes environmental alteration to a world. A bomb that produces a large crater is not considered a WMD. A bomb that causes a nuclear winter is. Okay, so big explosion is fine. Super irradiation is not fine. That makes sense. The use of WMD is forbidden on garden worlds like Earth, with ecospheres that can rarely support a population. If a habitable world is destroyed, it will not be replaced for millions of years. The conventions do not forbid the use of WMD on hostile worlds or in sealed space station environments. Many militaries continue to develop and maintain stockpiles, so you can nuke people in space and you can nuke people that are at war with you. But try not to use it on nice worlds. The conventions graded weapons of mass destruction into tiers of concern. Tier 1 is the greatest threat to galactic peace. Tier 1, large kinetic impactors, such as asteroid drops or deorbiting space stations. Okay, colony drops are at the top. Do not colony drop, ever. That is super hyper illegal. Got it. Effectively free and available in any system, in the form of debris left over from planetary accretion, kinetic impactors are the weapon of choice for terrorists and third galaxy nations. Not third world, but third galaxy. Got it. Yeah. So, hey, those Batarians that wanted to drop the asteroid on Terra Nova, extra hyper illegal, guys. Don't do it. That is beyond illegal. Tier 2. Uncontrolled self-replicating weapons, such as nanotechnology, viral, or bacteriological organisms, von Neumann devices, and destructive computer viruses. These weapons can lie dormant for millennia, waiting for a careless visitor to carry them on to another world. Okay, yeah. So, don't make things that can self-replicate, and basically don't introduce invasive technology that will destroy things. No locusts. Large energy burst weapons, such as nuclear or antimatter warheads. Straightforward. Alien species deliberately introduced to crowd out native forms necessary for the health of... Okay, there we go. Locusts. Don't introduce invasive species. Like, is invasive technology an invasive species? Don't do it. Alien species deliberately introduced to crowd out the native forms necessary for the health of an ecosystem. Ecological tampering can take years to bear fruit, making it difficult to prove. Yeah, it's like, did you introduce these? No, these were always here. Those look like earth monkeys. No, they're not. Those are... nunkies. Yeah. Well, don't do it. CSEC. Citadel Security is a volunteer police service answering to the Citadel Council. The 200,000 constables of CSEC are responsible for maintaining public order in the densely populated Citadel. They also provide pirate suppression, customs enforcement, and search and rescue throughout the Citadel cluster. CSEC has 6 divisions. Enforcement, uniformed officers who patrol the Citadel and respond to emergencies, the cops. Investigation. Detectives, who puzzle out the truth behind crimes and bring perpetrators to justice. Customs. Screen the thousands of passengers and cargo containers that pass through the Citadel's ports every day. Network. Deals with cybercrimes like identity and copyright theft, hacking and viral attacks, and illegal artificial intelligence. They're the techno-cops. Special Response. Deals with hostage situations, bombs, and heavily armed criminals. In the unlikely event that attackers board the Citadel, they are also a front line of defense, armed with military-grade equipment. So, SWAT. Patrol. Naval arm with ships stationed throughout the Citadel cluster. The Coast Guard. Unlike the other divisions, they are rarely seen at the Citadel, nor do they stay in one place long. Joining CSEC is prestigious. Applications must be sponsored by Citadel Counselor or the ambassador of an associate council race. Generally, applicants have many years of distinguished service in the military or police force of their nation, but an inexperienced applicant with demonstrable talent will be fairly considered. So, if you're already a cop, you got a good chance. If you're not a cop, but you're really good at being a cop, you also got a chance. CSEC inspectors are often at odds. Many CSEC members, notably current executor Venari Palin, believe that allowing inspectors to be above the law is a dangerous practice. It is, he's not wrong. The actions of Saren Arterius, his name is Saren Arterius? His last name is awesome! I don't think it's been said before. Alright. He has a rad name! The actions of Saren Arterius lend credence to this position. The Spectres, in turn, are aggravated when CSEC's dedication to procedure and due process hampers their investigations. Yeah, that makes sense. Hyper-lawful versus, hyper-chaotic. The Presidium Ring. The ring is an enclosed loop of park-like space, serving as the connection point for the wards. The interior walls are lined with the embassies of influential species and private residences for the galaxy's elite. The Presidium is full of open-air restaurants, bars, and luxurious meeting areas. Gravity is about 1/3 Earth normal. Oh, so we're super light here. A holographic sky is projected over the ceiling of the ring. Unlike the 24/7 bustle of the wards, the Presidium maintains a 20-hour day schedule, with a 6-hour night, where the lights are dimmed and the sky goes through a night cycle. Offices and residences are often open to the interior. It is not unusual for embassies to have no exterior wall at all. This does not cause a crime problem due to the heavy CSEC present and ubiquitous monitoring devices in the Presidium. Thieves are quickly identified and apprehended. The ring is the location of the Citadel's spaceports. Being closer to the center of spin, there's less motion for a ship to match, and the reduced spin gravity makes handling cargo easier. Hundreds of ships pass through the Citadel every day, and every species with an embassy is granted a private dock. The tower, at the center of the ring. Oh, wow, that's what that is. I didn't realize that's what that was. That's the big tower that you take the elevator up. Wow, that sticks out. Like, a lot. The tower at the center of the ring holds the administration and of the Citadel Council. The tower rises over 1 kilometer from the ring, appearing to thrust forward parallel to the ward arms. As the tower is at the center of the spin axis, it experiences little centrifugal force. Gravity is maintained using Mass Effect fields at a 90-degree angle to the ring and wards. A consular deck can be found at the base of the tower. While normally used for diplomatic couriers and Spectre business, the shuttles docked here can evacuate the council government in an emergency. Huh. I didn't realize that that's what that construction was. That makes a lot more sense. The Serpent Nebula itself. The Citadel is surrounded by blue-tinted reflection nebula. The light of the nebula is actually the light from the Citadel, scattered and reflected back at the station. At first, the Serpent Nebula was assumed to be made of microscopic construction debris. Prevailing theory holds that the Protheans used molecular nanotechnology to manufacture the incredibly durable materials used in the Citadel. But unlike other nebulae, the Serpent does not dissipate over time. Therefore, it must be replenished constantly. The current popular theory is that the non-recyclable waste collected by the Citadel's keepers is somehow rendered down to the atomic or molecular level and ejected into the cloud. The thick nebula presents a navigation hazard. Beyond the relatively clear areas around the Citadel, electrical discharges are common. These are not blocked by kinetic barriers and can severely damage metal-framed starships. In addition, some dense knots of dust can overwhelm the repulsion of kinetic barriers on smaller ships. If such a vessel is moving fast enough at the time, the effects are similar to being hit by a sandblaster. That is terrifying. So I guess the Citadel is naturally safe from, like, extensive invasion. Because you literally have this nebula that's like, no outsiders, you gotta come the right way. Attempting to reach the Citadel through open space navigation is unadvisable. The only safe approach is through the various mass relays that orbit it. Yeah. Alright, it has natural defenses. That's actually really neat. Statistics. I almost said statistics. Although Citadel is equipped with Mass Effect generating element 0 cores, most of the gravity on the station is generated by the centrifugal force of rotation. So it rotates 3.5 minutes per revolution. In the wards, it's actually basically Earth gravity, but in the Presidium itself, you're lighter. Oh, that's gotta be so weird. You go from the Presidium to the wards, and you're like, now I feel heavier. When it's open, it's 44 kilometers wide, or long, and its diameter is 12 kilometers, or 13 kilometers. The wards are 43 kilometers. So yeah, the ring itself is, wait. Oh, I guess if we're assuming it's a... Wait, what is open and what is closed? Does it fan out into, like, well, a fan? Or is it, like... Does it go from tube into cone? Anyway, bunch of numbers. The wards. The majority of the Citadel's population lives in the wards, the 5 massive arms of the station that house the residential and commercial districts. Many galactic races have established cultural enclaves here. Population density and cost of living are extremely high, akin to Earth cities such as Hong Kong and Singapore. The wards are open-topped, with skyscrapers rising from the superstructure. Towers are sealed against vacuum as the breathable atmosphere envelope is only maintained to a height of about 7 meters. Are you serious? It's... What? The atmosphere is actually super short, and everything above that is sealed. Like, I was wondering how that worked. That's super weird. The atmosphere is contained by a centrifugal force of rotation and a membrane of dense, colorless sulfur hexafluoride gas, held in place by carefully managed Mass Effect fields. That seems like so much. It should... Just close it. It's fine. The view from the wards is spectacular. In the background, stars, Serpent Nebula, and the nearby blue giant called the Widow move across the sky as the station rotates to stabilize itself. In the foreground, the lights of buildings and vehicles on the opposing ward arms perpetually shine. The Citadel has no real day or night. While the station keeps a standard galactic time for political functions, businesses rarely close, and residents acclimate to sleep and work according to personal need, rather than a day-night cycle. Additions and modifications are constantly being constructed, though they must stay within certain specifications that will not compromise the operation of the station. Occasionally, the Keepers will descend on an area of the wards and move or change the architecture without explanation. Residents have learned to live with these inexplicable intrusions. Imagine running a shop and it's like, where's my shop? Oh, the Keepers, they moved it to this corner. But I had prime real estate. Well, I gotta deal with the corner now. So, that's kind of funny. Oh, I have so much humanity stuff. Genetic engineering. In the 22nd century, manipulation of the human genome became commonplace. Techniques of genetic engineering advanced to the point where the rich could custom-build fetuses that grew into stronger, smarter, and more attractive adults. In more permissive regions, custom-designed life forms and uplift... Oh my god, I'm having so much trouble reading. Alright, back it up. Techniques of genetic engineering advanced to the point where the rich could custom-build fetuses that grew into stronger, smarter, and more attractive adults. In more permissive regions, custom-designed life forms and uplifted animals occupied an ill-defined niche between property and sapient being. Travel to planets with unique forms of life brought an awareness that Earth's unique biodiversity could be lost if spliced and hybridized to gain useful alien qualities. The Sudam-Walcott Genetic Heritage Act was passed by the Systems Alliance Parliament in 2161. It imposed sharp restrictions on controversial uses of genetic engineering, but provided government subsidies for beneficial applications. Is that a no to making cat girls? Or, cat people? Because that seems like a terrible loss. Screening and therapy. Most governments provide free assessments and corrective therapy for genetic diseases in prospective parents. This has nearly eliminated everything from cystic fibrosis to nearsightedness. You solved nearsightedness? Do people need glasses? But, I mean, aesthetically, I like glasses. I don't like needing glasses, but I like having glasses. The earlier screening and therapy is performed, the more comprehensive the results. Though ideally performed on an artificially fertilized zygotes in a lab, procedures are available for embryos in the womb and newborns, out of respect for personal beliefs. Enhancement. Improvement of natural human abilities is legal, but adding new abilities is not. Treatments to improve strength, reflexes, mental acuity, or appearances are permitted. Adding a tail or the ability to digest cellulose is not. Some genetic enhancement is provided for free to Alliance military recruits, but the average citizen must pay for the privilege. The adult can take years to reach fruition in an adult. Huh. I mean, I'm sure that was potentially controversial, but I guess it's accepted now. Engineering. Artificial hybridization of genes from the compatible non-human species with human genetic code is illegal. Creation of designed life is broadly legal and mainly used for terraforming and medical applications, but sentient creatures are heavily regulated, and the creation of sapient life is outlawed by both Systems Alliance and the Citadel Council. That sounds like a no on the cat girls. Damn it. You failed me, Mass Effect universe. Human diplomatic relations. Humanity has encountered many galactic species. Wars have been few, but mistrust is rife. Politically, the Alliance is a peaceful trade partner of the Turians. Why is that all in caps? I guess because it's important. As a practical matter, however, there is a simmering antagonism and bigotry between both populations over the First Contact War of 2157. It was literally like 20-something years ago. More than 25, less than 30. The Alliance enjoys good relations with the Asari, though many privately believe the matriarchs are aristocratic and overcautious. I mean, they're probably not wrong. They like to deliberate on things. Though humans know better than to unconditionally trust any Salarian, their shared restless, reckless ways make them natural allies against the conservative Turians and Asari. The Krogan have no unified government, but individuals are generally treated as potential criminals, a reputation most Krogan enjoy living down to. Oh, well, I mean, if you're gonna act the stereotype. The Alliance has no formal contact with the Quarians. Their migrant fleet has not yet passed through any human-settled system. The Batarians are rivals for control of the Skyllian Verge. They severed their treaties with the Citadel to prosecute a colonial conflict against the Alliance. Officially, there is no war, but neither is there any peace. I mean, they literally broke off from the Council to be like, well, if you won't side with us, we'll just fight everybody. And it's like, you're really stupid, but good luck. Geological survey. As the human race expands its territory and raises the general standard of living, demand for industrial resources continues to grow. Many planets, moons, and asteroids contain a wealth of resources, but many systems have barely been charted, let alone thoroughly surveyed. Unmanned probes are one solution, but they are often lost to space hazard, unforeseen circumstances, or theft by salvagers. In recent years, the Alliance Geological Service, has offered bounties to private individuals or teams willing to perform mineralogical surveys on the frontier. This survey data is made publicly available to further corporate development. Due to the cost of travel and the dangers of operating on hostile worlds, it is rarely a profitable endeavor. I mean, I profited a lot from it. I get so much money from scanning those rocks. So there's light metals. Metals with low atomic weight are often used in construction of spacecraft and vehicles. Heavy metals, metals with higher atomic weights, are used to construct equipment components. The platinum group elements are particularly useful. Rare earths. Most useful materials in this category are radioactives or magnets. And gases. Why is gases all lowercase? Someone forgot to hit caps lock. Various gases are required to support all known forms of sapient life. Some are commonly used as fuel, like hydrogen-3. Alright, the military doctrine. The Alliance military is of great concern to the galaxy. At first contact with the Turians, they were completely inexperienced. Turian disdain changed to respect after the Leaf of Shanxi, where the humans surprised them with novel technologies and tactics. Like, I do find that funny, because that is a Turian thing. Where it's like, ha, we kicked your ass. And it's like, oh, they kicked us back. Alright, well played. We still hate each other, but, well played. You fought back real good. Good job. The human devotion to understanding and adapting to modern space warfare stunned the staid Council races. For hundreds of years, They had lived behind secure walls of long-proven technology and tactics. The Council regards the Alliance as a sleeping giant. Less than 3% of humans volunteer to serve in their military, a lower proportion than any other species. While competent, Alliance soldiers are neither as professional as the Turians, nor as skilled as the Asari. Their strengths lie in fire support, flexibility, and speed. They make up for lack of numbers with associated technological support, VIs, drones, artillery, electronic warfare, and emphasis on mobility and individual initiative. Their doctrine is not based on absorbing and dishing out heavy shocks like the Turians and the Krogan. Rather, they bypass enemy strongpoints and launch deep into their rear, cutting supply lines and destroying headquarters and support units, leaving enemies to wither on the vine, which I assume Solarians are like, yeah, that's the way to do it. On defense, the human military is a rapid reaction force that lives by Sun Tzu's maxim: he who tries to defend everything defends nothing. Garrisons are intended for scouting rather than combat, avoiding engagement to observe and report on invaders using drones. The token garrisons of human colonies make it easy for alien powers to secure them, for which the Alliance media criticizes the military. However, the powerful fleets stationed at phase gate nexuses, such as Arcturus, are just a few hours or days from any colony within their sphere of responsibility. In the event of an attack, they respond with overwhelming force. Yep, sounds about right. Oh, military ranks, here we go. The Alliance uses a modified version of the ranking system that has been used for hundreds of years. Soldiers are classified into rank-and-file enlisted personnel, experienced non-commissioned officers, NCOs, and specially trained officers. The divide between naval personnel and ground forces, Marines, is small. Ground units are a specialized branch of the fleet, just as fighter squadrons are. This unity of command is imposed by the futility of fighting without control of orbit. Without the Navy, any army is pointless. The Marines, as a matter of pride, maintain some of their traditional rank titles. For example, Marines have privates and corporals instead of servicemen. In ascending order of responsibility, the ranks of the Alliance are enlisted, serviceman 3rd class, private 2nd class, serviceman 2nd class, private 1st class, serviceman 1st class, corporal. The NCOs are service chief, gunnery chief, we had a gunnery chief once, and operations chief. Officers are 2nd lieutenant, 1st lieutenant, staff lieutenant, lieutenant commander, staff commander, captain major, rear admiral, general, admiral, and fleet admiral. I believe, I don't know which lieutenant Kaiden is, and I want to say Shepard is a lieutenant commander because Anderson is captain. Alright, and Terra Firma. Let's see what these guys have to say. Oh, it's real short. Terra Firma is an alliance political party formed out of the First Contact War. Its policy agenda is based on the principle that Earth must stand firm, hence firm Earth, Terra Firma, against alien influences. This covers a variety of legislation. Recent activities by Terra Firma include opposition to a law requiring high school alien language study, a proposal to increase tariffs on the alien imports, and leading a popular movement to mark the First Contact War with a public holiday. They're opposed to learning alien languages in school? That's... no. Stop that, Terra Firma. Get help. Don't oppose learning like that. And like... listen, if you consider the aliens your enemies, you might as well learn how to speak their language. That way you can, decode whatever they're saying. If you can't understand them, you don't know what they're gonna do. Now, from the rational perspective, there's no reason to oppose language study aside from extreme racism. So, shut up. Though founded by well-meaning individuals who feared the submersion of native human cultures under a wave of alien vogue, Terra Firma's agenda attracts many jingoists and xenophobes. Yeah, I mean, I can understand, again, the main idea, which is what Ashley supported, is the core idea of humans need to be able to stand on their own without needing help and being uplifted. Like, in order to be a force in space, we can't always depend on everybody. I get that. But at the same time, play nice. That's all I ask. And you can't play nice if you don't learn other people's languages. I want to know what Turian sounds like. I want to know what Asari sounds like. I want to know what anything sounds like. I mean, I guess I can tell what Hanar sounds like because they just glow. It's weird that their language is bioluminescence. But still, like, I want to know what those languages sound like. I have so much FTL to learn. Here we go. FTL drive appearance. New space travelers ask, what does it look like outside a ship moving at faster than light speed? Part of the answer can be seen in a simple pane of glass. Light travels slower through glass than it does in open air. Light also moves slower in conventional space than it does in high-speed mass effect field. This causes refraction. Any light entering at an angle is bent and separated into a spectrum. Objects outside the ship will appear refracted. The greater the difference between the objective exterior and subjective interior speeds of light, the greater the refraction. As the subjective speed of light is raised within the field, objects outside will appear to redshift, eventually becoming visible only to radio telescope antennae. High-energy electromagnetic sources, normally hidden to the eye, become visible in the high blue spectrum. As the speed of light continues to be raised, X-ray, gamma ray, and eventually cosmic ray sources become visible. Stars will be replaced by pulsars, accretion disks of black holes, quasars, and gamma ray bursts. To an outside observer, a ship within a mass effect drive envelope appears blue shifted. If within a field that allows travel twice the speed of light, any radiation it emits has twice the energy as normal. If the ship is in a field about 200 times the light speed, it radiates visible light as X-rays and gamma rays, and the infrared heat from the hull is blue shifted up into the visible spectrum or higher. Ships moving at FTL are visible at great distances, though their signature will only propagate at the speed of light. So, ship becomes blue. Outside looking in looks blue. Inside looking out looks red. Because bands of light and wavelengths and stuff. Drive charge. As positive or negative electric current is passed through an FTL drive core, it acquires a static electrical charge. Drives can be operated an average of 50 hours before they reach charge saturation. This changes proportional to the magnitude of mass reduction. A heavier or faster ship reaches saturation more quickly. If the charge is allowed to build, the core will discharge into the hull of the ship. All ungrounded crew members are fried to a crisp, all electronic systems are burned out, and metal bulkheads may be melted and fused together. That is terrifying. The safest way to discharge a core is to land on a planet and establish a connection to the ground, like a lightning rod, literally grounding the ship from static electricity. Larger vessels like dreadnoughts cannot land and must discharge into a planetary magnetic field. The ship passes the charge from the drive core to the exterior armored hull, then dives into the magnetic field. As the hull discharges, sheets of lightning jump away into the field, creating beautiful auroral displays on the planet. The ship must retract its sensors and weapons while dumping charge to prevent damage, leaving it blind and helpless. Discharging at a moon with a weak magnetic field can take days. Discharging to the powerful field of a gas giant may require less than an hour. Deep space facilities, such as the Citadel, often have special discharge facilities for visiting ships. So that's what those planets mean when they're good for dumping charge. They just have a magnetic field that's like, take away the static electricity, please. Thank you. On my way. But ones with poor magnetic fields are like, you're not losing anything here. You better go find somewhere else before you fry everybody inside. Combat endurance. Heat limits the length and intensity of ship-to-ship combat. Starships generate enormous heat when they fire high-energy weapons, perform maneuvering burns, and run onboard combat electronics. In combat, warships produce heat more quickly than they can disperse it. As heat builds within a vessel, the crewed spaces becomes increasingly uncomfortable. Before the heat reaches lethal levels, a ship must win or retreat by entering FTL. After an FTL, the ship halts, shuts down non-essential systems, and activates the heat radiation gear. Combat endurance varies by ship design and the battle's location. Battles in the deep cold of interstellar space isn't actually cold though, can go on for some time. Like, space is void. You're not dispersing heat into nothing, you need to disperse it into something. Like atmosphere. Anyway. Engagements close to a star are brief. Well, yes, it is radiating a lot of heat. Since habitable worlds are usually close to a star, battles over them are frantic. But, yeah, I mean, I can see that. You don't want to cook everybody, so either you win or you get out of dodge before everyone cooks. General tactics. Shelves lofted by surface navies crash back to Earth when their acceleration is overwhelmed by gravity and air resistance. In space, a projectile has unlimited range. It will keep moving until it hits something. Indeed. Newton's first law. Practical gunnery range is determined by the velocity of the attacker's ordnance and the maneuverability of the target. Beyond a certain range, a small ship's ability to dodge trumps a larger attacker's projectile speed. The longest range of combat occurs between dreadnoughts, whose projectiles have the highest velocity but are the least maneuverable. The shortest range combat is between frigates, which have the slowest projectile velocities and highest maneuverability. Opposing dreadnoughts open with a main gun artillery duel at extreme, in all caps, ranges of tens of thousands of kilometers. The fleets close, maintaining evasive lateral motion while keeping their bow guns facing the enemy. Fighters are launched and attempt to close the disruptor torpedo range. Cautious admirals weaken the enemy with ranged fire and fighter strikes before committing to close action. Aggressive commanders advance so cruisers and frigates can engage. At long range, the main guns of cruisers become useful. Friendly interceptors engage enemy fighters until the attackers enter the range of ship-based Guardian fire. Why is it spelled like that? Dreadnoughts fire from the rear, screened by smaller ships. Commanders must decide whether to commit to a general melee or retreat into FTL. At medium range, ships can use broadside guns. Fleets intermingle and become difficult to retreat in order. Ships with damaged kinetic barriers are vulnerable to Wolfpack frigate flotillas that speed through battle space. Only fighters and frigates enter close knife fight ranges of 10 or fewer kilometers. Fighters loose their disruptor torpedoes, bringing down a ship's kinetic barriers and allowing it to be swarmed by frigates. Guardian lasers become viable weapons, swatting down fighters and boiling away starship armor. Neither dreadnoughts nor cruisers can use their main guns at close range. Laying the bow on a moving target becomes impossible. Superheated thruster exhaust becomes a hazard. Yeah, when you're that close, it's like, well, I can't fine-tune my aim anymore because I have to make wider turns, and that is not possible. Now for planetary assaults. Planetary assaults are complicated if the target is a habitable garden world. Attackers cannot approach the defenders straight on. Citadel conventions prohibit the use of large kinetic impactors against habitable worlds. In a straight-on attack, any misses plow into the planet behind the defending fleet. If the defenders position themselves between the attackers and the planet, they can fire at will, while the attacker risks hitting the planet. Successful assaults on garden worlds hinge upon up-to-date intelligence. Attackers need to determine where the enemy's defenses are, so they may approach from an angle that allows them to fire, with no danger of collateral damage. Note, this is not necessary for hostile worlds. Yeah, if you're at straight-up war with a hostile world, doesn't matter, blow them up. But if it's a garden world, where, it's either neutral or, they're trying to raise up new life, it's like, don't ruin it. Don't be that guy. Once control of orbit has been lost, defensive garrisons disperse into the wilderness. An enemy with orbital superiority can bombard surface forces with impunity. The best option for defenders is to hide and collect reconnaissance in anticipation of relief forces. Given the size of a planet, it is impractical to garrison entire conquered worlds. Fortunately, colonization efforts tend to focus on building up a dozen or few areas. Ground forces occupy the spaceports, industrial facilities, and major population centers. The wilderness is controlled by unmanned aerial vehicles and satellite reconnaissance. If a defender unit is spotted, air mobile rapid deployment units and satellite artillery are used to pin down and destroy them. Tense. Oh my god, there's so much more. Oh my god. Ships and vehicles. Crew considerations. Cabins give each individual 10 cubic meters of space. On larger vessels, private rooms are common. As ships get smaller, the number of crew packed into a single wardroom increases. Asari prefer shared spaces, even on large vessels, while Krogan territorial instincts make it impossible for them to cohabitate even on the smallest ships. On smaller vessels, hot bunking is the norm. Crew members assigned to different watches share the same bunk. When one gets off duty, he wakes the person in the bunk, while that crewman is on duty, the first gets his rack time. Spacecraft compartments can be isolated by airtight doors in case of decompression. Depression is a different problem entirely. The cinematic vision of explosive decompression is fiction. Hold compartments either take enough damage that occupants are killed instantly, or leak slowly enough that they are able to reach protective gear. So you don't, implode when exposed to space. Compartments are equipped with emergency life support apparatus. Fireproof plastic bubbles with air bottles. Small one stowed, ELSA comfortably accommodate one individual inflated. Damage control procedure cuts off ventilation to burning compartments. Without oxygen to consume, fires die in seconds. The compartment is repressurized afterwards for crew recovery. Mass effect fields create artificial gravity, AGRAV, plane below the decks. preventing muscle atrophy and bone loss in 0G. Large vessels arrange their decks perpendicular to the thrust axis. The highest decks are at the bow and the lowest at the engines, the aft. This allows agrav to work with the inertial effects of thrust. Ships that can land arrange their decks laterally, so the crews can move about while the vessel is on the ground. Warships normally turn off their aircraft systems during combat, reducing the heat generated by systems and increasing combat endurance. To provide a point of reference in navigating the 0G, floors are painted a different color from the walls and ceiling. Yeah, you don't want the gravity to turn back on and be like, am I on the ceiling and the floor? Ow! Now, what they don't have is, the thing I see often in Gundam, which I absolutely love, is, like, the mobile handrails, where you grab onto the thing and it slides you along while you're in 0G. That way, you can just be sped to the next area instead of having to, like, swim over. I love those things. It's always cool to see. Cruisers. Cruiserweight starships are a standard combat unit encountered away from the large naval bases, the poor bloody infantry of most fleets. Nimble scouting frigates have neither the punch nor the stamina to stand up to serious combat, and the mighty dreadnoughts are a strategic resource, carefully hoarded and committed to the most critical battles. Cruisers perform routine independent show-the-flag patrols in settled systems and lead flotillas of frigates and small engagements, such as pirate suppression campaigns. In major fleet engagements, cruiser squadrons support the dreadnought battle line by screening their flanks against enemies attempting to maneuver for main gun bow shot from their vulnerable broadsides. Alliance cruisers are named after cities of Earth. Is that why this is the Normandy? Fighters! We haven't seen any. I kind of want to use a fighter. That sounds fun. Fighters are single-pilot, small combat craft. Let me remix those words into proper order. Fighters are single-pilot, combat small craft. They're lightweight enough that they can be economically fitted with powerful Element Zero cores, making them capable of greater acceleration and sharper maneuvers than starships. Kinetic barrier shields change starship battles from short, vicious bloodbaths to extended, indecisive slugging matches. Only the main gun of a dreadnought could punch a mass accelerated slug through the barriers of an opposing dreadnought. This changed with the development of the fighter-launched mass disruptor torpedo, a short-range weapon that can penetrate kinetic barriers to destroy their projector assemblies. Starship Guardian defenses must be overwhelmed through swarm tactics. Fighter groups can take heavy casualties from pressing their torpedo attacks home. Once fighter-launched torpedoes have crippled an enemy's barriers, the mass accelerators on frigates and cruisers can make short work of them. Interceptors are a type of fighter optimized to attack other fighters, with no ability to damage starships. Interceptors are used to screen friendly units from incoming fighter attack. That's pretty standard, yeah. Frigates are light escort and scouting vessels. They often have extensive guarding systems to provide an anti-fighter screening for capital ships and carry a squad of marines for security groundside duty. Unlike larger vessels, frigates are able to land on planets. Frigate drive systems allow them to achieve high FTL cruise speeds. They also have proportionally large thrusters and lighter design mass, allowing them to maneuver more handily. In combat, speed and maneuverability make a frigate immune to the long-range fire of larger vessels. In the time it takes projectiles to reach them, frigates are no longer where they were predicted to be. In fleet combat, frigates are organized into wolfpack flotillas of 4 to 6. Wolfpacks speed through enemy formations, hunting enemy vessels whose kinetic barriers have been taken down by fighter-launched disruptor torpedoes. The wolfpack circle strafes vulnerable targets using their superior speed and maneuverability to evade return fire. Alliance frigates are named for great battles in human history. Oh, I guess Normandy was a beach. So, Normandy's a frigate. Heat management. Dispersal of heat generated by onboard systems is a critical issue for a ship. If it cannot deal with heat, the crew may be cooked within the hull, which is a horrifying prospect. Radiation is the only way to shed heat in a vacuum. Ah, that's how we're addressing that. Okay, yeah. Civilian vessels use large, fragile radiator panels that are impossible to armor. Warships use diffuse radiator arrays, DRA, ceramic strips along the exterior of the armored hull. These make the ship appear striped to thermographic sensors. Since the arrangement of the ship depends Since the arrangement of the strips depends on the internal configuration of the ship, the patterns for each vessel are unique and striking. On older ships, the DRA strips can become red or white hot. Dubbed tiger stripes or war paint by humans, the glowing DRA had psychological impact on pirates and irregular forces. Strip radiators are not as efficient as panels, but if damaged by enemy fire, the ship only loses a small portion of its total radiation capacity. In most cases, a vessel's DRA alone allows it to cruise with no difficulties. Operations deep within a solar system can cause problems. A ship engaged in combat can produce titanic amounts of heat from the maneuvering burns and weapons fire. When fighting in high heat environment, warships employ high-efficiency droplet heat sinks. In a droplet system, tanks of liquid sodium or lithium absorb heat within the ship. The liquid is vented from spray nozzles near the bow as a thin sheet of millions of micrometer-scale droplets. The droplets are caught at the stern and recycled to the system. A droplet system can sink 10 to 100 times as much heat as DRA strips. Droplet sheets resemble a surface ship's wake through water. The wake peels out in sharp turns, spreading a fan of droplets as the ship changes vectors and leaves the coolant behind. Alright, so there's multiple ways to cool, which is, cool. Sensors. Light lag prevents seeing in real time at great distances. A ship firing its thrusters at the Charon relay can be easily detected from Earth, 5.75 light years, 6 billion kilometers away, but Earth will only see the event 5 hours and 45 minutes after it occurs. Due to the light speed limit, defenders can't see enemies coming until they have already arrived. Because there's FTL travel and communications, but no FTL sensors, frigates are crucial for scouting and picket duties. Passive sensors are used for long-range detection, while active sensors obtain short-range, high-quality targeting data. Passive sensors include visual, thermographic, and radio detectors that watch and listen for objects in space. A powered ship emits a great deal of energy. The heat of the life support systems, the radiation given off by power plants and electrical equipment, the exhaust of the thrusters. Starships stand out plainly against the near absolute zero background of space. Passive sensors can be used during FTL travel, but incoming data is significantly distorted by the effects of the mass effect envelope and Doppler shift. Active sensors are radars and high-resolution LiDARs, laser detection and ranging, emit a ping of energy and listen for return signals. LiDARs have a narrower field of view than radar, but LiDAR resolution allows for images of detected objects to be assembled. Active sensors are useless when a ship is moving at FTL speeds. Yeah, I feel that's pretty standard space warfare sensors. Combat drones. Drones are small robots used to support and supplement organic soldiers on the battlefield. They have no artificial intelligence of any kind, but follow fixed, minimally adaptive programs. Most varieties employ mass effect levitation to improve mobility. All modern armies rely on variable fleets of drones for routine soldiering, static garrisons, patrols, etc. The use of drones in non-critical duties keeps manpower needs down and reduces casualties in low-intensity conflicts. Less advanced races and cultures with less sensitivity to casualties have correspondingly fewer drones in their inventory. Drones are of little use in conventional open-field battles as they are poorly armed and armored. I mean, they still like to shoot at me. In addition to combat drones, support drones are used to assist organic units in the field. Reconnaissance drones are small, stealthy craft that screen combat units in the field and warn commanders when enemies are spotted. Electronic warfare drones supplement battlefield technicians, serving as mobile jammers and ELINT, electronic intelligence gathering platforms. Military and civilian police utilize Dazzler drones, equipped with powerful strobe lights to disorient and subdue intruders using non-lethal force. Drone formations are officially referred to as wings, i.e., deploy the 4th Assault Drone Wing on the left flank. Common soldiers often refer to friendly formations as flocks and enemy formations as swarms. That's fun. Drone combat. I'm surprised we don't have any drones on the Normandy, for anything. You'd think we'd have some. Or, deploy more. Ablative armor. A warship's kinetic barriers reduce the damage from solid objects, but can do nothing to block guardian lasers, particle beams, and other forms of directed energy weapons, DEWs. The inner layer of warship protection consists of ablative armor plate designed to boil away when heated. The vaporized armor material scatters a dew beam, rendering it ineffectual. A scaffold is built around the interior pressure hull, with sheets of ablative armor hung from the structure. Ships typically have multiple layers of armor separated by empty baffles. Space is often used for cargo storage. Cruisers, which lack the internal space to fit dedicated fire hangars, store the shipboard fighter complement in the baffles. It is not unknown for enlisted crew to build illicit alcohol distilleries in some obscure corner of the baffles, safe from prying eyes. Guys, just don't drink on the job. Disruptor torpedoes. Disruptor torpedoes are powered projectiles with warheads that create random and unstable mass effect fields when triggered. These fields warp spacetime in a localized area. The rapid asymmetrical mass changes cause the target to rip itself apart. Oh! I thought it was like EMP pulses that break through, shields. No. These are warpy space twisty torpedoes. Fancy. In flight, torpedoes use mass-increasing field to make them too massive for enemy kinetic barriers to repulse. This extra mass gives torpedoes very sluggish acceleration, making them easy prey for defensive Guardian weapons. So, torpedoes have to be launched at very close range. Torpedoes are the main anti-ship weapon used by fighters. They are launched from point-blank range in ripple fire waves, reminiscent of the ancient Calliope rockets' artillery launchers, thus their popular nickname, Callies. Calliope rocket. Yeah. Like the Reaper. By saturating defensive Guardian systems with multiple targets, at least a few will get through. Cool. Just launch hordes of rockets to rip apart armor. Does the Normandy have those? These seem cool too. Can we make like bullet-sized versions of those? Just warp bullets? Guardian. A ship's General Area Defense Integration Anti-Spacecraft Network. So General Area Defense Integration Anti-Spacecraft Network. Guardian. That's why it's spelled that way. Consists of anti-missile, anti-fighter laser turrets on the exterior hull. Because these are under computer control, the gunnery control officer needs to do little beyond turn the system on and designate targets as hostile. Since lasers move at light speed, they cannot be dodged by anything moving at non-relativistic speeds. Unless the beam is aimed poorly, it will always hit its target. Literal hit-scan weapons. In the early stages of battle, the Guardian fire is 100% accurate. It is not 100% lethal, but it doesn't have to be. Damaged fighters must break off for repairs. Lasers are limited by diffraction. The beam spreads out, decreasing energy density, watts per M2. The weapon can place on a target. Any high-powered laser is a short-range weapon. Oh, so it's not effective at longer ranges because it dissipates. Guardian networks have another limitation: heat. Weapons-grade lasers require cooldown time, during which heat is transferred to sinks or radiators. As lasers fire, heat builds within them, reducing damage, range, and accuracy. Fighters attack in swarms. The first few will be hit by Guardian as the battle continues. But as the battle continues, the effects of laser overheat allow attackers to press ever closer to the ship. Constant use will burn out a laser. Guardian lasers typically operate in infrared frequencies. Shorter frequencies would offer superior stopping power and range, but degradation of focal arrays and mirrors would make them expensive to maintain, and most prefer mechanical reliability over bleeding-edge performance where lives are concerned. Solarians, however, use near-ultraviolet frequency lasers with 6 times the range, believing that having additional time to shoot down incoming missiles is more important. Lasers are not blocked by the kinetic barriers of capital ships. However, the range of lasers limits their use to rare knife-fight range, ship-to-ship combat. Super short-range lasers, pierce shields, hit scan, but overheat very quickly. Cool. Technology. Technology's the last tab. I'm almost there. Communications Administration. While comm buoys allow rapid transmission, there's a finite amount of bandwidth available. Given that trillions of people may be trying to pass a message to a given buoy at any one time, access to the network is parceled out on priority tiers. The Citadel Council inspectors have absolute priority. If they're using all the bandwidth, everyone else must wait. Individual governments and their militaries enjoy the next highest tier. During wartime, civilian communication can suffer hours or even days of lag. Intelligence agencies study ping time through various systems to predict military buildups. Below the governments and militaries, bandwidth's priority is sold to the highest bidder. Media conglomerates, particularly headline news networks, purchase high priority to provide their viewers with timely information. Corporations that require timely information and response capability, for example, financial institutions and investment firms, also invest heavily in priority access. The funds acquired through the sales of bandwidth are used to maintain and expand the communications infrastructure. While everyone with a computer has guaranteed free and unlimited access to the Galactic Extranet, they are last in line for bandwidth and may have to wait for their request to be processed. Bandwidth resale corporations use investment capital to purchase blocks of high-priority access made available by paid subscription. So, playing online games across the galaxy has awful ping. Unless you're a Spectre, at which point you always win because you have the best ping. Imagine, going into an intergalactic fighting game tournament that's, you know, online for some reason instead of, like, in person. Spectre's always going to win because he's the one not suffering any lag. Spectre's like, yeah, no, works fine on my end. It's like, of course it does. You cheat. Methodology. As the population of the galaxy increases and new worlds are settled, timely across for home users and frontier settlements with undeveloped communication wow, hang on, that's a sentence. As the population of the galaxy increases and new worlds are settled, timely access for home users and frontier settlements with undeveloped communication infrastructures is a growing problem. To ameliorate, I've never seen that word before, bandwidth issues, a sophisticated array of data caches and virtual intelligence search agent programs are available. When a user submits a query, it is first routed to the data cache on their colony or star system. At the cache, the user's search agent VI collates mountains of locally stored data to find the desired material. If the information is not available locally, the query is passed along to neighboring systems, and then outward in an expanding network. VI search agents in those systems replicate the search. If the desired information is found, it is compressed into a burst file and queued for transmission to the source system. The burst is assigned priority based on the number of queries for it. The greater the number of queries, the higher the priority. When a new source system is first connected to the net, a selection of the most popular data is installed locally. Though storage hardware is cheap, the capacity required to hold all the data produced every day by trillions of people on hundreds of worlds is not trivial. Yeah, I'm sure. It's not economical to store local copies of all the data available on obscure topics just in case. As colonies mature, older and less popular chunks of data filter into them as a result of queries and are placed in the local archive. Searches for obscure topics are increasingly likely to produce instant results as the archive grows. That's... Man, you can't maintain Wikipedia across the entire galaxy. It's just too much info. That's unfortunate. Alright, I think I've done it. That is all the lore. That's so much lore. Huh. Okay. Gonna take a break. Then I'm gonna come back. We're gonna finish this thing. But for now, I should go.